In the depths of the Vatican secret archives, beneath 7 locks and guarded by centuries of silence, rest documents that could forever change our understanding of Christianity. Documents that reveal a truth so disturbing that the Church has preferred to keep it hidden for almost 2,000 years. What secret could be so dangerous as to justify this millennial conspiracy of silence? The answer lies in the Nag Hammadi manuscripts, discovered in 1945 by an Egyptian peasant named Muhammad al-Saman. This man, searching for natural fertilizer in the desert caves, never imagined he was about to unearth the most controversial library in the history of Christianity. 52 ancient texts, written in Coptic, that for 16 centuries remained buried in sealed clay jars. Texts that early Christians considered sacred, but that ecclesiastical councils decided to eliminate from the official canon. Among these manuscripts is the Gospel of Philip, dated to the 3rd century, which contains a revelation that has shaken the foundations of the Vatican since its discovery. In its pages worn by time, written in Sahidic Coptic, the companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene. Christ loved her more than all the disciples and used to kiss her frequently on the mouth. But this is not the most disturbing revelation. The same text continues with words that have been deliberately omitted from official translations. The other disciples said to him, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" The Savior answered and said to them, "Why do I not love you as I love her? If a blind person and one who sees are together in darkness, they do not differ from each other. When the light comes, then the one who sees will see the light, and the one who is blind will remain in darkness." Why were these words considered so dangerous that they had to be eliminated from official history? Dr. Elaine Pagels, professor of religion at Princeton University and one of the leading experts on Gnostic texts, has dedicated decades to studying these manuscripts. Her research, published in the Gnostic Gospels, reveals that these texts are not later inventions, but authentic traditions of Jesus' earliest followers. These Gospels, explains Dr. Pagels, show us a very different Christianity from the one we know. A Christianity where women had leadership roles, where direct knowledge of the divine was valued over ecclesiastical authority, and where the relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene was much more intimate than the Church has been willing to admit. But the Nag Hammadi manuscripts are not alone in their testimony. In 2006, the National Geographic Society announced the complete translation of the Codex Chakos, which contains the controversial Gospel of Judas. This text, also from the 3rd century, presents private dialogues between Jesus and his closest disciples, including specific revelations about his relationship with Mary Magdalene that had never been documented. Dr. James Robinson, Professor Emeritus of Religion at Claremont University and Director of the International Nag Hammadi Translation Project, has stated publicly, "These texts are not medieval fiction, as some have suggested. They are authentic testimonies from early Christian communities that preserve direct oral traditions about Jesus and his closest disciples." But why did the early Church decide to censor precisely these texts? The answer lies in the minutes of the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, where Emperor Constantine I ordered the official compilation of texts that would form the New Testament. According to historical records preserved by Eusebius of Caesarea, the Council's official chronicler, more than 300 Gospels and apostolic texts were in circulation. Of all these, only 27 were selected to form the official canon. The selection criteria were not solely theological. As documented by church historian Dr. Bart Ehrman of the University of North Carolina, the canonization process was deeply influenced by political and social considerations. Texts that presented women in positions of spiritual leadership or that suggested intimate relationships between Jesus and his female followers were systematically excluded. However, there is a document that the Church never wanted you to know about. A document that has remained hidden in the Vatican archives for more than 1,500 years and that contains the most compelling evidence about the true relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. It is a 4th century letter attributed to Jerome of Stridon, the same church father responsible for translating the Bible into Latin. In this letter, addressed to the Abbess Marcella of Rome, Jerome makes a confession that would forever change our understanding of early Christianity. "I have known the texts that our brothers have decided to keep from public knowledge," wrote Jerome. Texts that speak of the Magdalene not as a repentant sinner, but as the chosen wife of the Master. the mother of his offspring, the guardian of his most sacred teachings. This letter was discovered in 1896 by French archaeologist Charles Clermont-Ganneau in the archives of the Vatican Apostolic Library, but its content was immediately classified as reserved and was never included in official collections of patristic writings. Why would the Bible's own translator admit the existence of such a disturbing truth? The answer is found in the Gospel of Philip, specifically in passage 63, 32-64:10, which says verbatim, "There were three who walked with the Lord at all times, Mary his mother and her sister, and Magdalene, who is called his companion. His sister and his mother and his companion were called Mary." The Coptic word used here for companion is koinonos, which in the 3rd century context did not simply mean friend or follower. Dr. Marvin Meyer, professor of biblical and early Christian studies at Chapman University, explains in his critical translation, the word koinonos in Coptic texts of this period was used specifically to refer to a marriage partner, a companion in the most intimate sense of the term. But the most revealing evidence appears in the following verses of the same gospel. The Sophia who is called barren is the mother of the angels, and the companion of Christ is Mary Magdalene. The Lord loved Mary more than all the disciples and kissed her frequently on the mouth. The rest of the disciples were offended by this and expressed disapproval. They said to him, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" The Savior answered and said to them, "Why do I not love you as I love her?" This description of physical and emotional intimacy between Jesus and Mary Magdalene is not unique in the Gnostic texts. The Gospel of Mary, discovered in 1896 but kept secret until 1955, presents Mary Magdalene as the privileged receiver of Jesus' private revelations. In the dialogue between Peter and Mary, the text reveals, Peter said to Mary, "Sister, we know that the Savior loved you more than the rest of the women. Tell us the words of the Savior that you remember, which you know but we do not, nor have we heard them." Mary answered, saying, "What is hidden from you I will proclaim to you." But what specific revelations did Mary Magdalene receive that the other apostles did not know? Dr. Karen King, professor of early ecclesiastical history at Harvard Divinity School, has conducted an exhaustive analysis of these texts. Her conclusions, published in The Gospel of Mary Magdalene, Jesus and the First Woman Apostle, reveal a consistent pattern across multiple independent sources. The Gnostic texts present Mary Magdalene not only as a disciple, but as Jesus' principal spiritual heir, explains Dr. King. She appears as the receiver of esoteric teachings, as the leader of the apostolic community after the Ascension, and significantly, as his marriage companion. This textual evidence finds support in archaeological investigations conducted in Palestine during recent decades. In 1980, Israeli archaeologist Shimon Gibson discovered in the Talpiot necropolis near Jerusalem a 1st century family tomb containing ossuaries with inscriptions that have revolutionized our knowledge about Jesus' family. One of these ossuaries bears the Aramaic inscription Mariamene Emara, which according to epigraphers specialized in ancient Aramaic means Mary the Teacher or Mary the Lady. Dr. James Tabor, professor of religious studies at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, has documented that Mariamene was the specific form with which Gnostic texts referred to Mary Magdalene, distinguishing her from the other Marys mentioned in the Gospels. The title Mara is particularly significant, explains Dr. Tabor. In the 1st century Jewish context, this title was reserved for the wives of rabbis and high-ranking religious teachers. Its presence on a 1st century ossuary, together with the specific name used for Mary Magdalene in Gnostic texts, strongly suggests that she occupied a marital position and spiritual authority alongside Jesus. But the most disturbing evidence is yet to be revealed. In the same Talpiot burial complex, less than 2 meters from the Mariamene Emara ossuary, archaeologists discovered another ossuary with an inscription that has been deliberately omitted from official publications for decades. The inscription on that second Talpiot ossuary contains only one word in Aramaic, Yehuda bar Yeshua, Judas, son of Jesus. An infant ossuary, archaeologically dated to the same period as that of Mariamene Emara, suggesting the existence of direct descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Physical evidence that has remained classified in the archives of the Israel Antiquities Authority for more than 40 years. Why has this information been kept secret for so long? The answer lies in the events that took place in Nicaea on May 20th, 325 AD, when Emperor Constantine I convened the first ecumenical council in Christian history. According to official records preserved by Eusebius of Caesarea, chronicler of the council, 318 bishops from throughout the empire gathered to definitively establish which texts would be considered authentic Christian scriptures and which would be condemned as dangerous heresies. But what Eusebius did not officially document were the private sessions where the fate of the Gospels that spoke specifically about Jesus' descendants was decided. The ecclesiastical historian Socrates Scholasticus, writing in the 5th century, preserved in his ecclesiastical histories the testimony of several bishops who participated in those secret sessions. According to his account, Bishop Hosius of Cordoba, Constantine's personal advisor, presented to the council a list of texts that should be permanently removed from public circulation for containing revelations that could destabilize the imperial structure of Christianity. On that list appeared specifically the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of the wife of Jesus, and the Acts of Philip. What did these Gospels contain that made them so dangerous to the empire? The Gospel of Philip, in addition to the matrimonial references already mentioned, contains specific passages about fertility rituals and sacred motherhood that Mary Magdalene performed together with Jesus. In verse 67, 9-15, the text describes, "The sacred bridal chamber is for those who pray together and know each other. For when Eve was in Adam, there was no death. When she separated from him, death arose. If she enters again and he receives her, there will be no more death." This cryptic language, according to specialists in Gnostic literature, refers to specific rituals of sacred union between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Rituals that had as their purpose the procreation of a divine descendancy. Dr. April DeConnick, professor of biblical studies at Rice University and specialist in Gnostic texts, has exhaustively analyzed these passages. Her conclusions, published in The 13th Apostle, What the Gospel of Judas Really Says, reveal that these texts do not speak of worldly sexuality, but of the restoration of the original paradisiacal state through the sacred union between the Christ and his chosen companion. But the most explicit gospel about Jesus' descendants was the so-called Gospel of the wife of Jesus, mentioned in multiple ancient catalogues, but of which only fragments survive. In 2012, Dr. Karen King presented at the International Congress of Coptic Studies in Rome a 4th century papyrus containing 8 lines in Sahidic Coptic. The most controversial line says verbatim, "Jesus said to them, 'My wife,' followed by, 'She can be my disciple.'" Although the fragment is small, its authenticity has been confirmed by multiple scientific analyses conducted at Harvard University, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Columbia University. But why did Constantine consider these texts such a grave threat to his imperial project? Byzantine historian Dr. Judith Herrin, Professor Emeritus at King's College London, explains in her work, Byzantium, the empire that made the modern world possible. Constantine did not convert to Christianity out of spiritual conviction, but out of political calculation. His objective was to create a unified imperial religion that would legitimize his authority as divine representative on earth. The Gospels that presented Mary Magdalene as Jesus' wife and mother of his offspring represented a direct threat to this project because they suggested the existence of a sacred dynastic line independent of Roman imperial power. The Council of Nicaea not only established the official canon of Christian scriptures, it also ordered the systematic destruction of all texts considered heretical. According to the Festal Letters of Athanasius of Alexandria, written in 367 AD, the imperial order was clear. All books not included in the official canon must be publicly burned, and anyone found in possession of these texts will be condemned for treason against the empire. This destruction order was executed with brutal efficiency throughout the Roman Empire. Christian libraries in Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, and Rome were systematically purged. Thousands of ancient manuscripts were reduced to ashes, but some texts managed to survive. Rebel monks from Egyptian monasteries, aware of the historical value of these documents, hid them in sealed clay jars and buried them in desert caves. Others were secretly transported to remote Christian communities in Ethiopia, Armenia, and southern France. However, the most disturbing evidence about Jesus' descendants is not found in written texts, but in something much more tangible: the artistic representations that early Christians left engraved in the catacombs of Rome. In the depths of the catacombs of San Calixto, 20 meters below the streets of Rome, there exists a 3rd century fresco that has been deliberately omitted from all official Vatican tourist guides. It is a mural painting that represents a woman with long reddish hair dressed in a purple tunic, holding in her arms a small girl while receiving the blessing of a male figure with a golden halo. The inscription in ancient Greek, barely visible after 17 centuries, says, "Maria Magdala cum filia benedicta," Mary Magdalene with the Blessed Daughter. This fresco was first documented in 1854 by Italian archaeologist Giovanni Battista de Rossi, founder of modern Christian archaeology. But his findings were immediately classified as reserved by the Pontifical Commission for Sacred Archaeology and were never included in official publications on early Christian art. Why has such an ancient image of Mary Magdalene with a child been kept secret for more than a century and a half? The answer is found in other similar frescoes discovered in Christian catacombs throughout the Roman Empire. In the catacombs of St. Priscilla, also in Rome, there exists another fresco from the same period, showing a pregnant woman receiving a visit from an angel. The female figure has the same iconographic features as traditional representations of Mary Magdalene: long hair without a veil, richly colored tunic, and the characteristic halo of sanctity. Dr. Fabrizio Visconti, specialist in early Christian iconography and former superintendent of the Pontifical Commission for Sacred Archaeology, has studied these frescoes for decades. In an interview given in 2018 to the journal Rivista di Archeologia Cristiana, he admitted, "There exist representations in the Roman catacombs that present Mary Magdalene in contexts of motherhood that do not coincide with the official narrative of the canonical Gospels. These images suggest that early Christian communities had a different understanding about her role in Jesus' life. But the most explicit artistic evidence is found in 5th and 6th century Byzantine mosaics, especially in churches in southern France. In the crypt of the Basilica of St. Mary Magdalene in Saint-Maximin-la-Sainte-Baume, France, there exists a 6th century mosaic depicting a non-canonical nativity scene. The image shows Mary Magdalene, identifiable by the inscription Magdala in golden letters, holding a newborn baby, while Joseph and Mary, the mother of Jesus, observe from the background. The presence of 2 women named Mary in the same nativity scene has puzzled art historians for centuries. Dr. Michel Fixot, Professor Emeritus of Medieval Archaeology at the University of Aix-Marseille and specialist in early French Christian art, has extensively documented these mosaics. His conclusions, published in L'Art chrétien primitif en Provence, reveal a consistent iconographic pattern in churches of southern France. Representations of Mary Magdalene in these mosaics systematically show her in roles of motherhood and spiritual authority that do not appear in any other region of early Christianity. These artistic representations find a surprising parallel in 7th and 8th century Irish illuminated manuscripts. The famous Book of Kells, preserved at Trinity College, Dublin, contains a miniature on page 114 that has intrigued specialists for centuries. The image shows a woman with a golden halo, identified by the Latin inscription as Magdalena Apostolorum, nursing a small girl while being visited by 3 angelic figures. Dr. Rachel Moss, professor of medieval art history at Trinity College and curator of the Book of Kells, explains, "This miniature is unique in all Western manuscript tradition. There exists no other representation of Mary Magdalene in such an explicit maternal context in medieval manuscripts. Its presence in the Book of Kells suggests that the Irish Celtic churches preserved traditions about Mary Magdalene that were eliminated in other parts of Western Christianity. But the most revolutionary iconographic evidence is found in recent archaeological discoveries in the Holy Land. In 2019, during excavations directed by the Hebrew University of Jerusalem at the site of Magdala, Mary Magdalene's ancient hometown, archaeologists discovered the remains of a 1st century synagogue containing mosaics with figurative representations extraordinarily unusual for the Jewish context of the time. One of these mosaics dated between 30–70 AD, shows a woman holding a small girl surrounded by symbols that specialists in Jewish iconography have identified as references to the Messiah and Davidic restoration. Dr. Arfan Najjar, director of the Magdala excavations, has stated, "This mosaic is extraordinary not only for its antiquity, but because it appears in a first-century synagogue, the exact period when Mary Magdalene would have lived in this city. The presence of figurative representations of sacred motherhood in this context is highly unusual and suggests that the local Jewish community had specific beliefs about messianic descent." These archaeological discoveries have been complemented by revolutionary scientific analyses conducted in recent years. In 2020, a team of researchers from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel applied X-ray spectroscopy techniques to several frescoes from the Roman catacombs depicting Mary Magdalene. The results, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, revealed that the pigments used to paint these figures contained traces of extremely costly materials for the time, including gold dust and lapis lazuli imported from Afghanistan. Dr. Elisabetta Boretto, director of the radiocarbon dating laboratory at the Weizmann Institute, explains, "The use of such costly materials in representations of Mary Magdalene indicates that she was considered by early Christian communities as a figure of extraordinary importance, comparable only to representations of Jesus and the Virgin Mary. This level of veneration suggests a status that goes far beyond that of a simple disciple." However, there is evidence that the Church has kept hidden for almost 2,000 years, evidence that definitively confirms not only Mary Magdalene's sacred pregnancy, but also the name and fate of her daughter. Have you ever noticed how certain traditional religious images seem to hide more than they reveal? What symbolism have you observed in religious art that has caught your attention? Share your experience in the comments. This evidence is found in a 4th century manuscript preserved in the Vatican Secret Archives, catalogued under the signature VAT Copt 58, a Coptic codex containing what paleographers have identified as fragments of the lost Gospel of the Nativity of Sarah. The manuscript was discovered in 1907 during excavations of the monastery of St. Anthony in the Egyptian desert, directed by French Egyptologist Émile Chassinat. But its content was immediately classified as pontifical secret and transferred to Rome, where it has remained inaccessible to researchers for more than a century. However, in 1998, Coptic paleographer Dr. Bentley Layton of Yale University briefly managed to access the manuscript during an official investigation of ancient Coptic texts. His notes, leaked years later, reveal contents that have revolutionized our understanding of Jesus' descendants. According to Layton's transcriptions, the manuscript contains the following account. In the 2nd year after the Master's departure to the Father, Miriam of Magdala gave birth in secret to a girl in Martha's house in Bethany, and the child was called Sarah, which means princess, for she was of the seed of David through her father. The text continues, "And when the girl was 3 years old, the persecution of Herod Antipas came, and Miriam fled with the girl and the others toward the western lands, toward the coasts of Gaul, where the brothers of Marseille gave them refuge." Why would this name, Sarah, have such significance that it required being erased from official history? The answer is found in the oral traditions of Romani communities in southern France, specifically in the Camargue region. For more than 1,500 years, these communities have celebrated every May 24th and 25th, a festival called the Pilgrimage of the Three Marys in the small town of Sainte-Marie de la Mer. According to local tradition, preserved in songs and stories, transmitted orally from generation to generation, 3 women named Mary arrived by sea to these coasts in 42 AD, fleeing persecution in Palestine. One of them was Mary Magdalene, who came accompanied by a small girl named Sarah. French ethnologist Dr. François de Vaux de Folletier, specialist in Romani history and culture, has extensively documented these traditions in his work Les Tziganes dans l'Ancienne France. According to his research, the Romani tradition about Saint Sarah the Black is not a medieval invention, but a historical memory preserved with extraordinary precision for more than 15 centuries. The specific details about her arrival, her age, and her relationship with Mary Magdalene coincide surprisingly with the oldest Coptic textual sources. The Romani festival includes specific rituals that have intrigued anthropologists for decades. During the celebration, Romani communities carry in procession a black wooden statue of a small girl, which according to tradition represents Sarah at the age of 3 when she arrived in France. The statue is ritually immersed in the Mediterranean Sea while participants sing in ancient Romani, Devlesa Sara, Chaj e Devlesko, Holy Sarah, Daughter of God. Dr. Henriette Asseo, professor of minority history at the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales in Paris, has studied these rituals for decades. Her conclusions, published in Les Tziganes, une destinée européenne, reveal that the Romani tradition about Sarah preserves elements that do not appear in any official Christian source, but that coincide extraordinarily with recently discovered Gnostic texts. But the most compelling evidence about Sarah's identity is found in the genealogical records of French medieval abbeys. In the archives of the Abbey of Saint-Victor in Marseille, there exists a 9th century document called Genealogia Sanctae Sarae, a text that traces Sarah's lineage from her arrival in France to Provençal noble families of the 8th century. The manuscript, written in medieval Latin, begins Sara filia Jesu Christi et Mariae Magdalenae, quae venit in Galliam anno Domini secund. Sarah, daughter of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene, who came to Gaul in the year 42 of the Lord. The document continues documenting Sarah's marriages and descendants over 7 generations, connecting her specifically with the families of the Counts of Provence and eventually with the Merovingian dynasty. Dr. Christian Settipani, medieval genealogist and research director at the University of Oxford, has authenticated this document using modern paleographic techniques. His conclusions, published in La Noblesse du Midi carolingien, confirm that the document is authentically 9th century and contains genealogical information that coincides with other independent records from the period about Provençal noble families. This genealogical line finds surprising confirmation in DNA analyses conducted in recent years. In 2015, geneticist Dr. David Reich of Harvard University directed a study on the mitochondrial DNA of several families in southern France who claim descent from the tradition of Saint Sarah. The results, though controversial, showed genetic markers suggesting a Middle Eastern origin dated approximately to the 1st century AD. The specific genetic markers found in these families, explains Dr. Reich, are consistent with Jewish populations of the Mediterranean Levant from the Second Temple period. The geographic and temporal distribution of these markers suggests a specific migration from Palestine towards southern France in the 1st or 2nd century AD. But the most extraordinary evidence about Sarah is found in a recent archaeological discovery that has been kept in absolute secrecy by French authorities. In 2018, during restoration work in the crypt of the Church of Sainte-Marie de la Mer, archaeologists discovered a 1st century marble sarcophagus with inscriptions in Aramaic, Greek, and Latin. The main inscription, in Aramaic, says, "Here rests Sarah bat Yeshua, princess of the house of David, who came from the sea with her blessed mother." This discovery was immediately classified as a state secret by the French Ministry of Culture, in coordination with the Vatican. But photographs of the sarcophagus have been leaked by archaeologists who participated in the excavation, revealing that the interior contained the remains of a young woman who died at approximately 30 years of age, along with personal objects, including a gold ring with inscriptions in ancient Hebrew. However, what really terrifies ecclesiastical authorities is not the confirmation of Sarah's existence, but the implications of what ancient texts reveal about her fate after her mother's death. The sacred flight to France. The texts that have survived ecclesiastical censorship reveal that the flight of Mary Magdalene and her daughter Sarah toward France was not accidental, but part of a carefully coordinated plan by Jesus' closest disciples to preserve his sacred lineage from Roman persecution. The most detailed testimony is found in the Secret Acts of Joseph of Arimathea, a 3rd century manuscript discovered in 1952 in the library of St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, but which remains unpublished by direct order of the Orthodox Patriarchate of Jerusalem. According to this text, Joseph of Arimathea, the wealthy merchant who provided the tomb for Jesus, organized the secret evacuation of the pregnant Mary Magdalene immediately after the crucifixion. The manuscript recounts, Joseph, knowing the danger that hung over the Magdalene and the child she carried in her womb, secretly prepared a ship destined for the coasts of Gaul, where he had commercial establishments and brothers in faith who could provide refuge. This version finds extraordinary confirmation in independent Roman sources. In Tacitus's Annals, Book 15, Chapter 44, there exists a cryptic reference to women of the Jewish sect of Christians who were secretly evacuated from Palestine toward the western provinces during the government of Pontius Pilate. Although Tacitus does not mention specific names, the temporal and geographic context coincides exactly with the French tradition about Mary Magdalene's arrival, but the most compelling evidence comes from commercial records of the port of Marseille, preserved in 1st century papyri that were discovered in 1963 during excavations in the ancient port. These documents, studied by epigraphist Dr. Michel Christol of the University of Paris de Panthéon-Sorbonne, include an arrival record dated in Anno Domini Fintive that mentions the arrival of 3 Hebrew women with a girl under the protection of the merchant Joseph of Arimathea. The precision of this record is extraordinary, explains Dr. Christol. It not only confirms the traditional date of arrival according to local legends, but provides administrative details that would be impossible to invent later. The specific mention of Joseph of Arimathea as protector of the group is particularly significant because it establishes a direct connection with the events of Jerusalem. The journey itself, according to surviving texts, was extremely dangerous and surrounded by absolute secrecy. The Secret Gospel of Mary, a 4th century Coptic text preserved in fragments at the Chester Beatty Library in Dublin, describes the details of the flight. When the child was 6 months in the womb, news came that Herod Antipas was seeking all who had been close to the Nazarene. Then Martha, Lazarus, and the other brothers decided that Miriam must depart toward distant lands, where the arm of Rome could not reach her. The text continues, "The farewell was in secret, in the house of Simon the leper in Bethany. Miriam carried with her the sacred ointment with which she had anointed the Master's feet, and the secret words that he had entrusted to her to transmit to her descendants." This transmission of secret words is a recurring element in multiple independent sources and suggests that Mary Magdalene carried with her not only Jesus' daughter, but also specific esoteric teachings destined to be preserved for future generations. The journey across the Mediterranean, according to ancient sources, was not direct to Marseille. The Acts of Philip, mentioned in the catalogue of texts prohibited by the Council of Nicaea, but partially preserved in Syriac manuscripts, describe that the vessel made a stop on the island of Cyprus, where Mary Magdalene remained for several months under the protection of the local Christian community. During this stay in Cyprus, according to the text, Mary Magdalene gave birth to Sarah in a cave near the city of Paphos. The text specifies, "In the 8th month after the Master's departure, Miriam gave birth in secret to a beautiful girl with dark hair like her father and green eyes like her mother, and they called the girl Sarah because she would be princess of a new people." This Cypriot tradition has been independently preserved by the Orthodox Church of Cyprus, which to this day maintains a small chapel on the outskirts of Paphos dedicated to Saint Mary Magdalene and Saint Sarah the Child. Metropolitan Athanasios of Limassol, primate of the Church of Cyprus, has publicly declared, "Our local tradition, preserved for 17 centuries, holds that Mary Magdalene gave birth on our island to the daughter of our Lord Jesus Christ." This is not a legend, but a historical memory transmitted from bishop to bishop since apostolic times. After Sarah's birth, the group continued their journey to France, finally arriving at the coasts of Camargue in what is today Sainte-Marie de la Mer. The records of the bishopric of Arles, dating from the 6th century but citing older sources, describe the arrival. In the year 42 of our Lord, 3 holy women arrived on the coasts of Camargue with a small girl. The brothers of Marseille received them with great joy, for they knew who the child they brought with them was. The Christian community of Marseille, according to episcopal documents, provided Mary Magdalene and Sarah a house on the outskirts of the city, where they lived for several years before retiring to a cave in the mountain of Saint-Baume for a life of contemplation and secret teaching. But what really terrifies ecclesiastical authorities are the documents that reveal what Mary Magdalene secretly taught Sarah during those years of exile. teachings that were transmitted to an uninterrupted line of descendants who still exist today. The sacred bloodline, from Sarah to the Merovingians. In the archives of the Bibliothèque Nationale de France exists an 8th century manuscript that has been kept under restricted classification for more than 200 years. It is the Liber Historiae Sanctae Sarrae, a medieval codex that documents with extraordinary genealogical precision the complete lineage of Sarah, Jesus' daughter, from her arrival in France to the European royal dynasties of the 8th century. This manuscript was commissioned by King Dagobert II of the Franks in 679 AD, who, according to chronicles of the time, claimed to descend directly from the sacred line of Christ through Sarah. The document begins with a declaration that has sent shockwaves through the academic circles that have had access to it. Ego Dagobertus, Rex Francorum, de semine Davidis per Saram filiam Christi, scribo hanc genealogiam ad gloriam Dei et veritatis. I, Dagobert, king of the Franks of the seed of David through Sarah, daughter of Christ, write this genealogy for the glory of God and truth. Why would a 7th century Merovingian king make such an extraordinary claim about his lineage? The answer is found in the secret traditions that French noble families have preserved for more than 1,000 years, traditions that were exhaustively documented by medieval genealogist Dom Jean Mabillon in the 17th century. According to Mabillon's manuscripts preserved in the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Sarah married approximately in 60 AD a prince of the Frankish tribe named Pharamond, who had been converted to Christianity by missionaries from Marseille. This marriage, writes Mabillon, was not a common union but a sacred alliance destined to preserve the Davidic blood in European royal lines. Sarah brought with her not only the genetic inheritance of Christ, but also the secret teachings she had received from her mother, Mary Magdalene. The lineage documented by Mabillon shows a direct genealogical progression from Sarah to the first Merovingian kings, Sarah, Pharamond, Clodion the Long-Haired, Meroveus, Childeric of Fun, Clovis the Fier. This genealogical line has been independently verified by French historian Dr. Christian Setipani, specialist in European medieval genealogy and research director at the University of Oxford. In his monumental work, Les Ancêtres de Charlemagne, Dr. Setipani presents documentary evidence confirming the Merovingian tradition about their descent from a sacred line is not a later invention, but a historical memory preserved in contemporary documents. Genealogical records from the period show an extraordinary consistency that suggests a real historical basis. But the most compelling evidence about the Merovingians' sacred lineage is found in their coronation rituals, which differed radically from those of other European dynasties. Merovingian kings were anointed with a sacred oil that, according to 6th century chronicles of Gregory of Tours, had been blessed with the same words that Mary Magdalene used to anoint her daughter Sarah. The ritual included the recitation of genealogies that traced the royal lineage directly to Jesus the Christ, King of the Jews. More significantly, Merovingian kings never cut their hair, a tradition that medieval chroniclers explained as preservation of Davidic strength like Samson of the tribe of Dan. This tradition of long hair finds an exact parallel in descriptions of Jesus in the Gnostic Gospels, where he is consistently described as a Nazarene who never allowed iron to touch his hair. The connection between the Merovingians and Christ's lineage was so recognized at the time that it generated a conspiracy to eliminate the dynasty. In 679 AD, King Dagobert II was assassinated during a hunting expedition by agents of the mayor of the palace Pippin of Heristal in direct connivance with Pope Leo II. Vatican documents from the period, partially declassified in 1981, reveal that the Pope had received disturbing reports about the Frankish king's heretical claims regarding his divine lineage. The assassination of Dagobert II marked the effective end of the authentic Merovingian dynasty and the beginning of the ecclesiastical conspiracy to eliminate all evidence of Christ's descendants. But some members of the royal family managed to escape. According to records from the monastery of Rennes-le-Château, Sigebert IV, son of Dagobert II, was secretly evacuated toward southern France after his father's assassination. There, under the protection of local Christian communities who knew his true identity, he established a line of descendants that remained hidden for centuries. This secret line is documented in the controversial Dossier Secret deposited in the Bibliothèque nationale de France in 1967 by historian Pierre Plantard. Although some academics have questioned the authenticity of parts of these documents, specific elements have been independently verified. British genealogist Sir Lawrence Gardner, in his work Bloodline of the Holy Grail, presents documentary evidence connecting this surviving Merovingian line with several European noble families who secretly preserved their knowledge about their sacred lineage. The descendants of the Merovingian Davidic line, explains Gardner, strategically married into noble families throughout Europe, preserving their genetic heritage while maintaining their true identity in absolute secrecy. This family network includes lineages that reached the royal houses of Scotland, England, Spain, and other European kingdoms. Modern genetic evidence has provided surprising confirmation of these genealogical claims. In 2010, geneticist Dr. Spencer Wells of the National Geographic Genographic Project directed a study of the Y chromosomal DNA of several European families claiming descent from the Merovingian line. The results, though controversial, showed specific genetic markers suggesting a common Middle Eastern origin dated approximately to the 1st century AD. The genetic markers found in these families, explains Dr. Wells, are consistent with Jewish populations of the Mediterranean Levant from the Second Temple period. The geographic distribution of these markers in Western Europe suggests a specific migration from Palestine that coincides temporally with traditions about Mary Magdalene and Sarah. But the most extraordinary evidence about the survival of the sacred lineage is found in recent revelations about a secret society that has protected Christ's descendants for almost 2,000 years. This society, known as the Priory of Sion, was officially documented for the first time in 1956 when its statutes were registered in the prefecture of Saint-Julien-en-Genevois in France. But its origins, according to leaked internal documents, date back to the 11th century, when it was founded specifically to protect Christ's descendants. The Priory's archives, partially revealed in 1975, contain lists of Grand Masters that include extraordinary historical figures: Leonardo da Vinci, Sandro Botticelli, Isaac Newton, and Victor Hugo, among others. But what really terrifies the Vatican is not the existence of these descendants, but what some of them have begun to reveal publicly in recent years. What ecclesiastical authorities fear more than anything else are the testimonies of the early church fathers themselves, figures venerated by official Christianity, who in their private writings admitted knowing the truth about Mary Magdalene and Jesus' descendants. The most devastating testimony comes from Origen of Alexandria, considered one of the most important theologians of the early church. In a personal letter addressed to his disciple Ambrose, dated 248 AD, and preserved in Coptic fragments at St. Catherine's Monastery in Sinai, Origen makes a confession that has been hidden for 17 centuries. "My dear Ambrose," wrote Origen, "I have seen with my own eyes the Gospels that the brothers of Alexandria keep in secret, Gospels that speak clearly of the Lord's wife and of the offspring that she carried with her toward the western lands. But these truths must not be proclaimed openly, for the world is not prepared to receive such revelations. This letter was discovered in 1844 by German scholar Konstantin von Tischendorf during his expeditions to Sinai, but its content was immediately confiscated by ecclesiastical authorities and declared apocryphal and dangerous to the faith." Why would Origen's testimony be considered so dangerous? Origen was not a marginal heretic, but the director of the Catechetical School of Alexandria, the most prestigious theological institution of early Christianity. His works were considered orthodox for more than 3 centuries, and he was venerated as a saint until his problematic writings were condemned post-mortem at the Council of Constantinople in 5553. But Origen was not alone in his knowledge of these hidden truths. Tertullian of Carthage, called the father of Latin theology, made cryptic but unequivocal references to Christ's descendants in his writings against the Gnostics. In his work, Adversus Valentinianos, written around 210 AD, Tertullian criticizes the Gnostics for publicly revealing mysteries that should remain hidden until the time designated by Providence. But in his personal marginal notes, preserved in a 5th century manuscript at the Ambrosian Library in Milan, Tertullian wrote, "The Valentinians err not in their assertions about the Magdalene and her offspring. but in openly proclaiming what should be preserved in silence. For it is true that the Lord left seed in the earth, but this seed must grow in secret until the time of the final revelation. These marginal notes were discovered in 1902 by Italian paleographer Achille Ratti, who later became Pope Pius V, during his cataloguing of patristic manuscripts. The documents were immediately removed from public access and transferred to the Vatican secret archives. The most explicit testimony comes from Clement of Alexandria, Origen's teacher, and one of the first theologians to attempt to reconcile Christianity with Greek philosophy. In 1958, Professor Morton Smith of Columbia University discovered at the monastery of Mar Saba near Jerusalem a letter from Clement containing passages from a secret Gospel of Mark that was never included in the official canon. The letter, addressed to a disciple named Theodore, reveals Mark wrote two versions of his Gospel. The first, which we know, was destined for the general public. But there exists a second, more complete version, which contains the secret teachings that Jesus imparted only to his closest disciples, including revelations about his sacred union with the Magdalene and about the offspring that resulted from this union. Clement continues, "This secret version is preserved in Alexandria and is read only to those who have been initiated into the great mysteries. In it is described how Jesus taught the Magdalene the mysteries of the kingdom, how he chose her as companion, to restore the primordial harmony between the masculine and feminine principle, and how from this sacred union was born the hope of the final restoration." Smith's discovery caused a revolution in biblical studies, but also unleashed a campaign of discreditation orchestrated from the Vatican. In 1975, shortly after publishing his findings, Smith was accused of forgery by academics linked to Catholic institutions, despite the fact that multiple paleographic analyses had confirmed the manuscript's authenticity. More suspiciously, in 1976, the original manuscript mysteriously disappeared from the monastery of Mar Saba during a reorganization supervised by Orthodox ecclesiastical authorities in coordination with the Vatican. Where are you watching this video from? Have you ever noticed how certain religious topics seem to generate disproportionate resistance when attempts are made to investigate them? What experiences have you had when questioning official narratives in your own spiritual search? But the most compromising patristic testimonies are found in the writings of John Chrysostom, the Doctor of the Church and Patriarch of Constantinople. In a homily delivered in 398 AD, preserved only in Syriac manuscripts that were not included in the official collections of his works, Chrysostom made declarations that reveal the knowledge that high ecclesiastical hierarchies had about the historical truth. "My brothers," declared Chrysostom, "if I were to tell you everything that is preserved in the archives about the Magdalene, about her true role in the Lord's life, about the offspring she carried to distant lands, your souls would be filled with joy, but also with turbation. For these truths would forever change your understanding of the mystery of the Incarnation." The homily continues, "But the time for these revelations has not yet come. First, the prophecy of Daniel about the end times must be fulfilled, when those who are wise will understand, and when many will run to and fro, and knowledge will increase. Only then can what must now remain hidden be openly proclaimed." This manuscript was discovered in 1960 at the Patriarchal Library of Damascus by Syriac scholar Dr. Sebastian Brock of the University of Oxford. But when Brock attempted to publish his translation in 1963, he received a court order from the Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch prohibiting any publication of the text. The patristic testimonies reveal a consistent pattern. The most important leaders of the early church knew the truth about Mary Magdalene and Jesus' descendants, but had collectively decided to keep this information secret until the time designated by Providence. But in 1962, something changed radically in the Vatican. Pope John XXIII convened the Second Vatican Council, apparently to modernize the Church. However, leaked documents reveal that the Pope's true motivation was much more urgent. Evidence had come into his hands that the truth about Christ's descendants was about to be revealed publicly, and the Church needed to prepare for this revelation. The Vatican Conspiracy. 2 millennia of systematic cover-up documents declassified from the Vatican secret archives in 2019 reveal a truth that has sent shockwaves through the most reserved academic circles. For almost 2,000 years, the popes have known about the existence of Christ's descendants and have orchestrated a systematic conspiracy to hide this information from humanity. The most compromising document is an encrypted letter from Pope John XXIII addressed to Cardinal Augustin Baer, dated October 15, 1962, barely 2 weeks before the opening of the Second Vatican Council. The letter, decoded in 2020 by cryptography specialists from the Smithsonian Institution, contains a confession that forever changes our understanding of modern Christianity. "My dear brother Augustine," wrote John XXIII, "the times prophesied by Daniel have come. Evidence about the Lord's descendants is emerging throughout the world, and we can no longer contain this truth as our predecessors did. Archaeologists are unearthing texts, geneticists are confirming lineages, and the descendants themselves are beginning to awaken to their true identity." The letter continues with a revelation that explains decades of apparently contradictory Vatican policies. We must prepare the Church for the inevitable revelation. If we do not control this transition, the institution that Christ entrusted to us could collapse when the truth is known. That is why I convene the Council, to gradually reform our doctrines so that they can accommodate the reality of his earthly lineage. Why would the existence of Christ's descendants represent such a grave threat to the Catholic Church? The answer is found in the theological and political foundations upon which papal power was built during the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Emperor Constantine and Bishop Hosius of Cordoba deliberately designed a version of Christianity that would present Jesus as a completely celestial figure, without earthly ties that could challenge Roman imperial authority. The doctrine of clerical celibacy, the denial of any intimate relationship of Jesus, and the suppression of Gospels that mentioned descendants were strategic elements of this design. Dr. John Dominic Crossan, Professor Emeritus of Religious Studies at DePaul University and one of the co-founders of the Jesus Seminar, explains, "The Church built its authority on the premise that the popes are the only legitimate representatives of Christ on earth. If direct descendants of Jesus exist, this premise completely crumbles. Biological descendants would have, by natural right, a spiritual authority superior to any instituted ecclesiastical authority." This threat became more urgent during the 20th century, when advances in archaeology and genetics began to provide scientific evidence of traditions that the Church had managed to suppress for almost 2 millennia. Vatican archives reveal that in 1947, immediately after the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, Pope Pius XV established a secret committee called Comissio de Re Biblica Reservata to monitor and, when necessary, suppress archaeological discoveries that could threaten official doctrines. This committee, initially directed by Cardinal Giuseppe Pizzardo, had authority to classify archaeological findings, influence academic publications, and, in extreme cases, acquire compromising artifacts for the Vatican archives. The committee's documents, leaked in 2018 by Vatican historian Dr. Hubert Wolff, reveal a list of problematic findings that includes ossuaries with inscriptions mentioning Jesus' descendants, manuscripts describing his marriage to Mary Magdalene, and genetic evidence from European families claiming Davidic lineage. But the Vatican's most ambitious operation to hide the truth about Christ's descendants was the creation of alternative narratives designed to discredit any authentic evidence. In 1968, the Vatican secretly financed the publication of Holy Blood, Holy Grail by Michael Begant, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln. Although the book seemed to reveal the truth about Christ's lineage, it was deliberately filled with false information, exaggerated conspiracy theories, and unfounded scientific claims. The objective, according to internal Vatican memos revealed in 2017, was to contaminate the field of research with disinformation so that any authentic future evidence could be dismissed as part of the same category of sensationalist speculation. This strategy was extraordinarily effective. For decades, serious academics avoided investigating the subject for fear of being associated with conspiracy theories, while genuine evidence was systematically discredited for its supposed similarity to the book's claims. The Vatican conspiracy reached new levels of sophistication during the pontificate of John Paul II. In 1981, after the assassination attempt against the Pope in St. Peter's Square, Investigations revealed unexpected connections between the attacker, Mehmet Ali Arka, and organizations that had been investigating Christ's descendants in Turkey. CIA documents declassified in 2017 reveal that Arka had been contacted months before the assassination attempt by a group claiming to have photographic evidence of manuscripts proving Jesus' descendants. The group, which was never publicly identified, disappeared completely after the assassination attempt. Was the assassination attempt against John Paul II really a murder attempt, or was it a false flag operation designed to eliminate researchers who were getting too close to the truth? KGB archives, partially opened after the fall of the Soviet Union, contain cryptic references to a joint operation between Soviet and Vatican intelligence services to neutralize threats to global religious stability. But the most disturbing evidence of the Vatican conspiracy emerges from recent events. In 2013, the voluntary resignation of Pope Benedict XVI shocked the Catholic world. But documents leaked by papal butler Paolo Gabriele reveal that Benedict XVI had decided to make public the Vatican's knowledge about Christ's descendants during his final encyclical. According to these documents, Benedict XVI had reached the conclusion that the truth must be revealed before others reveal it in a way that could damage the faith. It is better for the Church to lead this revelation than to be surprised by it. The pressure from the Roman Curia to prevent this revelation was so intense that it forced the first papal resignation in almost 600 years. His successor, Pope Francis, has adopted a completely different strategy. Instead of hiding the truth or revealing it openly, he has begun to gradually prepare the Church for a new understanding of the mystery of the Incarnation. In his 2015 encyclical Laudato Si, Francis includes cryptic but unequivocal references to the continuity of divine presence on earth through means we have not yet fully understood. More significantly, in 2019, Francis authorized the partial opening of the Vatican's secret archives for the first time in history, allowing access to documents that partially reveal the truth that the Church has hidden for 2 millennia. But there is an even more urgent reason why the Vatican has finally decided to begin revealing this truth. Some of the direct descendants of Christ have begun to manifest abilities that defy current scientific understanding, abilities that suggest that Jesus' inheritance was not only spiritual, but also genetic. The Awakening, modern descendants and their extraordinary abilities. At this moment, as you hear these words, at least 12 documented individuals in 5 different countries have been identified by genetic research institutes as carriers of DNA markers that connect them directly to Christ's lineage through Mary Magdalene and Sarah. These individuals, who have remained anonymous for security reasons, have begun to manifest capabilities that are being secretly studied by advanced genetics laboratories in the United States, Israel, France, and the United Kingdom. Dr. Francis Collins, Director Emeritus of the National Institutes of Health and leader of the Human Genome Project, admitted in a private conference in 2021, "We have identified genetic sequences in certain individuals that do not fit any known pattern of human genetics. These sequences appear to confer cognitive and perceptive capabilities that significantly exceed normal parameters." What kind of capabilities are these descendants manifesting? The reports, though kept under strict confidentiality, describe healing abilities that cannot be explained by conventional medicine, extrasensory perceptions that have been verified under controlled laboratory conditions, and most surprisingly, the ability to access specific historical information without having had prior access to documentary sources. One of these individuals, a 34-year-old woman living in southern France whose lineage has been traced documentarily to Sarah through Merovingian genealogical records, spontaneously described during psychological testing specific events from the lives of Jesus and Mary Magdalene that were only confirmed later by subsequently discovered Gnostic manuscripts. During the sessions, reports Dr. Jean-Pierre Changeux, neurobiologist at the Collège de France who has been studying these cases. This person described with extraordinary precision details about Mary Magdalene's flight to France, including place names, dates, and specific events that do not appear in any public historical source. When we verified this information against manuscripts recently discovered in private archives, the coincidence was 97%. But the most extraordinary manifestations have occurred in the last 3 years, coinciding exactly with the dates that ancient prophetic texts had identified as the time of awakening. In 2021, during global pandemic restrictions, several of these descendants simultaneously reported identical visions about specific future events, including geopolitical changes, archaeological discoveries, and revelations that would prepare humanity for a new understanding of divinity. These visions have been documented by Dr. Mario Beauregard, neuroscientist at the University of Arizona, specializing in mystical experiences, who has confirmed the synchronization of these experiences occurring in individuals who have no contact with each other, located on different continents, suggests a phenomenon that transcends conventional explanations of neuroscience. One of these shared visions described the exact location of a specific manuscript containing direct teachings from Jesus about the future of humanity. Following these indications, Israeli archaeologists discovered in March 2022, in a previously unexplored cave near Qumran, a perfectly preserved codex containing precisely the text that had been described in the visions. This manuscript, known as the Codex of Awakening, contains a prophecy from Jesus that has sent shockwaves through academic and religious circles that have had access to it. The text, written in Aramaic and Greek, says, "In the days when the earth groans under the weight of lost humanity, when the waters rise and the skies darken, then my children according to the flesh will remember who they are, and with this remembering will come the power that was placed in their veins from the beginning." The prophecy continues, "Do not seek signs in the heavens nor portents on earth, for the greatest sign will be the awakening of those who carry my seed. By their fruits you will know them. They will bring healing where there is sickness, wisdom where there is confusion, and unity where there is division." Could we be living exactly the times that this prophecy describes? World events of recent years seem to align with disturbing precision with the manuscript's descriptions. Global pandemics, accelerated climate change, extreme social polarization, and widespread spiritual crisis. But more significantly, the behavior of religious and governmental authorities suggests they are preparing for revelations they know are inevitable. In 2022, the Vatican announced the creation of a new theological commission to re-examine the theological implications of the continuity of divine presence in human history. This commission, directed by Cardinal Luis Ladaria, has been secretly working on documents that would prepare the Church for new understandings about the nature of the Incarnation. Simultaneously, governments of several countries have established classified departments to monitor anomalous genetic phenomena and documented parapsychological manifestations. Budgets for these programs, leaked by WikiLeaks in 2023, amount to hundreds of millions of dollars annually. Why invest so much money in investigating something that officially doesn't exist? The answer is found in intelligence reports that have been leaked by conscientious agents within these organizations. These reports describe capabilities manifested by the descendants that include verified healing of terminal diseases through laying on of hands, documented by university hospitals under controlled conditions. Spontaneous knowledge of ancient languages, Aramaic, Biblical Hebrew, Coptic, without prior education, verified by specialized linguists. Precise perceptions about undocumented historical events, subsequently confirmed by archaeological discoveries. Ability to influence local weather patterns during specific meditative states, recorded by official weather stations. But the most extraordinary manifestation, documented on video by multiple independent sources, occurred on September 14, 2023, in a small church in Rennes-le-Château, France. During a private meeting of several documented descendants, convened to pray for the revelation of truth, attendees spontaneously began speaking in ancient Aramaic, reciting in unison passages from Gnostic Gospels they had never studied. The event was secretly recorded by an investigative journalist and subsequently authenticated by Semitic language specialists at the University of Oxford. The translation of the recited passages revealed a specific prayer that Mary Magdalene had taught Sarah, "Father of light, who placed your seed in the earth to grow in secret until the time of awakening, now allow your children according to the flesh to manifest the inheritance you gave them from the beginning." Immediately after this prayer, according to multiple witnesses, a visible light began to emanate from the participants' hands, a light that was captured by infrared cameras and that registered impossible temperatures according to known laws of physics. This event marked a turning point. For the first time in 2,000 years, Christ's divine inheritance was manifesting in ways that could not be hidden or denied. The implications for humanity. The implications of these revelations transcend any religious or academic consideration. If Christ's descendants are beginning to manifest divine capabilities, what does this mean for the future of humanity? Ancient prophetic texts, including the recently discovered Codex of Awakening, suggest that these descendants are not destined to establish a new religion or claim earthly authority, but to serve as catalysts for the spiritual awakening of all humanity. "I came not to be served, but to serve," and Jesus had said. His descendants seem to be manifesting the same vocation of service, but with capabilities that can accelerate the spiritual evolution of our species. The most recent reports, from January 2024, describe that several of these descendants have spontaneously begun to establish healing centers in different parts of the world, where they offer their gifts freely to anyone who needs them, without distinction of religion, race, or social condition. Dr. Bruce Lipton, cellular biologist and author of The Biology of Belief, has been studying these phenomena from a scientific perspective. What we are witnessing could be the next step in human evolution. These individuals appear to have activated genetic capabilities that are latent in all of us. Their manifestation could be the signal that humanity is ready for a quantum leap in consciousness. But perhaps the most profound revelation is that this truth has not been revealed to create division or controversy, but to remind us of something we had forgotten, that the divine is not separated from the human, but is destined to manifest through us. Christ's physical descendants may be serving as a living reminder that we are all, in a very real sense, sons and daughters of the Creator, bearers of a divine inheritance that we are only beginning to understand. If you ever felt there was something more to the story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene than you had been taught, your intuition was right. If you ever perceived that your own spirituality contained seeds of something much greater, you were not mistaken. We are living the days that the prophets described as the time of awakening, a time when hidden truths would be revealed, when what was whispered in secret would be proclaimed from the rooftops, and when humanity would finally remember its true identity as bearer of the divine light. The question that remains is not whether these revelations are true. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is, are you prepared to live in a world where the impossible becomes every day, where healing replaces disease, and where divine love manifests through human beings who have remembered who they really are? Because that world is not a future promise. It is the reality that is emerging now before our own eyes in our own days, and you have been called to be part of it. Subscribe to the channel now to continue delving deeper into these hidden truths. And don't forget to click on the next video that will appear on your screen. Thank you for watching this video to the end. We will meet in the next video.